By the time the enemy fighters appeared, Captain Elias Warren already knew how this was supposed to end. He had been flying long enough to understand the arithmetic of air combat. One aircraft against many did not require courage or cleverness to predict the outcome. It required a pencil. You counted speed. You counted altitude. You counted ammunition. You counted how many seconds it took before the sky ran out of options. And on that morning in early 1944, above the cloud-choked valleys of northern Italy, the numbers were not in his favor. Warren flew a P-47 Thunderbolt, a massive aircraft that looked more like a steel vault with wings than a fighter. It was fast in a dive, stable under fire, and brutally unforgiving to pilots who tried to fly it like something lighter. Against him were 5 German fighters, sleek, aggressive shapes that had been designed for one thing: turning faster than the man across from them. Dogfighting doctrine was simple. Close the distance. Turn inside your opponent. Force him into a mistake. Kill him before he kills you. Warren had never liked doctrine. He held his altitude as the first Messerschmitt peeled off in Dove. He did not turn to meet it. He did not climb. He did not run. He adjusted throttle by a fraction and watched. The German pilot expected resistance. A brake turn. A climb. Something dramatic. Instead, the Thunderbolt continued on its course, steady, almost indifferent. The first burst of cannon fire passed behind him. The second German fighter committed. Then the third. That was the moment Warren stopped thinking about winning. He thought about not playing the game at all. Elias Warren was not supposed to be a fighter pilot. He knew this because nearly everyone had told him so. He was tall, quiet, methodical, and unnervingly calm in situations where others burned hot with adrenaline. In training, instructors complained that he did not feel the fight. He calculated it. He delayed when others acted. He questioned maneuvers that were meant to be instinctive. One instructor had written in his file that Warren lacked aggression. Another had written that he lacked fear. Both were correct. Warren grew up in Kansas, the son of a railway engineer who believed machines deserved respect and punishment only came from misuse. As a boy, Warren learned early that systems failed predictably. If something broke, it was because someone ignored a rule, not because fate intervened. When the war came, Warren volunteered without enthusiasm and without hesitation. He learned to fly the way he learned everything else, by understanding limits first. How much stress metal could take. How long fuel lasted when pushed. What happened when airspeed dropped, not suddenly but deliberately. Dogfighting bored him. Not because it was easy, but because it was theatrical. It depended too much on bravado and too little on inevitability. He preferred the margins. By 1944, Warren was flying escort missions over occupied Europe, protecting bombers that moved like slow, vulnerable cities across the sky. He had watched pilots die trying to be heroes. He had watched others survive by being boring. On the morning his story changed, he had been separated from his formation after flak burst too close and forced him lower than planned. He climbed back through broken cloud cover and found himself alone. Then the German fighters arrived. They circled at first, confident, patient. They had altitude, numbers, and the advantage of familiarity. Warren could almost feel their certainty pressing down on him. He checked fuel, ammunition, engine temperature. Everything was within tolerance. So he waited. The first attack came from above and behind. Warren did not turn. He eased the stick forward, let the Thunderbolt fall into a shallow descent, and reduced throttle just enough to change the rhythm of the attack. The German pilot overshot. It was not dramatic. There was no burst of fire. Just a brief moment where 2 aircraft occupied the same piece of sky and one of them realized it had misjudged distance. Warren did not pursue. That was the mistake his enemy did not understand. The Messerschmitt climbed and turned back, annoyed now, embarrassed perhaps. The others followed, tightening the circle. They expected Warren to fight back, to commit, to show teeth. Instead, he widened the circle. He dropped lower. He slowed again. He let the sky compress around him until the Germans had to adjust their spacing to avoid colliding with each other. Air combat was supposed to be violent and fast. Warren made it awkward. Another fighter dove. Warren rolled slightly, not enough to evade, just enough to spoil the firing angle. Tracers passed close enough that he heard them strike air, not metal. He did not return fire. The Germans began to lose patience. That was the second mistake. They attacked together now, overlapping arcs, trying to overwhelm him with aggression. Warren felt the Thunderbolt shudder as a round struck the wing root. A warning light flickered, then steadied. He watched their approach paths. He watched how tightly they turned. He watched how much speed they carried through each maneuver. Then he did something no manual recommended. He leveled out completely and cut power. The Thunderbolt slowed hard. Not into a stall, not into panic, but into a deliberate deceleration that no fighter pilot expected in the middle of an engagement. The lead German overshot violently. For half a second, his aircraft filled Warren's canopy. Warren fired once. The Thunderbolt's guns were not delicate instruments. They were brutal, heavy weapons designed to destroy bombers, tanks, and anything else unlucky enough to be in front of them. The burst was short and precise. The Messerschmitt exploded. The sky changed instantly. Confidence evaporated. Formation loosened. The remaining German pilots pulled away, reassessing. Warren did not chase them. He climbed instead, slowly reclaiming altitude while they argued with each other through hand signals and radio static. The second kill came not from pursuit, but from interruption. A German pilot committed too early, too steeply, trying to prove something. Warren rolled inverted and dropped beneath him, letting gravity do the work. The Thunderbolt gained speed where the lighter fighter lost it. Another short burst. Another aircraft fell. By now the fight was no longer a fight. It was confusion colliding with patience. The remaining Germans circled wider, firing from longer distances, missing more than hitting. Their fuel burned. Their certainty drained away. Warren took damage. The cockpit filled with the smell of oil and cordite. A round shattered his canopy, sending shards of plexiglass across his face and neck. Blood ran warm under his collar. He did not wipe it away. He counted. When the third German fighter broke off, Warren let him go. When the fourth tried one last desperate pass, Warren did not evade at all. He held course, waited for the exact moment when speed and angle converged and fired. The German aircraft snapped apart midair. The last enemy pilot disengaged completely, diving toward the clouds and disappearing. Warren was alone again. His aircraft was damaged. His fuel was low. His hands shook now that the sky had quieted. He turned west and began the long flight home. When he landed, ground crews stared at the Thunderbolt in disbelief. Holes riddled the wings and fuselage. The canopy was cracked and stained. One gun had jammed. Another had nearly torn itself free from its mount. Warren climbed out without ceremony and handed his aircraft over like a man returning a borrowed tool. The debrief took hours. Officers wanted to know why he had not turned earlier. Why he had not pressed the attack. Why he had ignored standard combat procedure. Warren answered calmly. "I didn't dogfight," he said. "I disrupted." They did not like that answer. But the kill confirmations were undeniable. 3 destroyed. 1 probable. 1 disengaged. He had survived alone against 5. Word spread as it always did. Other pilots began asking questions. Not about his marksmanship but about his timing. His throttle control. His refusal to commit. Some tried to copy him and failed. Others learned slowly. Warren never claimed he had invented anything. He said only that speed was a tool, not a religion, and that sometimes the safest move was the one that made no sense to the person trying to kill you. By the end of the war, men who had flown with him remembered him not as a hero, but as something rarer. A pilot who lived. By the summer of 1944, the Army Air Forces did not know what to do with Elias Warren. He was not reckless enough to be celebrated in speeches, and not conventional enough to be quietly forgotten. His combat reports read like engineering notes rather than battle narratives. Speeds, angles, timing intervals. No dramatic language. No inflated claims. Yet the numbers forced attention. Warren flew 42 combat missions after the engagement over northern Italy. He was engaged by enemy fighters on 13 of them. He was never shot down. He was never forced to bail out. And he accounted for 7 confirmed kills and 4 probables without ever entering what doctrine defined as a dogfight. That unsettled people. Fighter doctrine at the time was built on aggression. Turn tighter. Climb harder. Press the advantage. The manuals were written by men who had survived by pushing limits, and the culture rewarded those who made the sky look violent. Warren made it look quiet. Pilots who flew escort with him noticed patterns. When attacked, Warren rarely climbed. He rarely chased. He let engagements stretch longer than seemed safe, bleeding energy from his opponents while conserving his own. He forced enemy pilots into decisions instead of reacting to them. It was not bravery. It was denial. He denied them the fight they wanted. German pilots began reporting encounters with a Thunderbolt that would not engage properly. Intelligence summaries noted frustration. One Luftwaffe report described an American pilot who refuses turning combat and exploits vertical separation in an unsporting manner. Warren found that phrasing amusing. But war did not reward amusement. On August 18, 1944, Warren's luck ran thin. Over southern France, escorting bombers targeting rail yards, flak tore through his aircraft just as enemy fighters arrived. One shell detonated beneath the fuselage, shredding hydraulic lines and damaging the control surfaces. Warren still did not dogfight. He dropped altitude, feathered throttle, and flew the Thunderbolt like a wounded animal that knew predators preferred healthy prey. 2 German fighters pursued briefly, fired, missed, and disengaged when they realized the aircraft would not behave normally. Warren crash-landed in a vineyard 30 miles behind Allied lines. French resistance fighters found him before German patrols did. They hid him in a stone cellar for 2 days, then moved him south under cover of darkness. Warren spoke little French. It did not matter. Mechanics understood machines in any language. He rejoined his unit a week later. The war ended 9 months after that. Warren returned to the United States without fanfare. He declined interviews. He refused requests to speak at Bond rallies. When asked to write an article about air combat, he submitted a 6-page technical analysis on energy management that editors found unusable. The Air Force promoted him anyway. Then they reassigned him. Warren spent the early Cold War years teaching at a training command in Arizona. Young pilots arrived eager to learn how to win fights. Warren taught them how not to lose. He stood in front of chalkboards and drew shapes instead of aircraft. He talked about gravity as a weapon and patience as a resource. He discouraged heroics. He discouraged obsession with the enemy. Fly your aircraft, he told them. Let the other man fly his. Some listened. Many did not. The jet age arrived and swept past him. Speed increased. Engagement ranges shortened and then expanded again with missiles. Dogfighting doctrine changed names but not instincts. Pilots still wanted the turn, the chase, the visible dominance. Warren retired quietly in 1956. He moved back to Kansas, married late, taught physics at a small college, and never mentioned how many men he had killed. His students knew him as a precise lecturer who disliked wasted motion and unnecessary drama. Only once did someone ask him directly. A former student, now an Air Force officer, asked why he never taught traditional dogfighting techniques. Warren thought for a long time before answering. Because everyone teaches that, he said. And because the sky doesn't care how brave you feel when you run out of options. He died in 1983. No obituary mentioned his combat record. No aircraft bore his name. No doctrine manual credited him with innovation. But pilots kept rediscovering his ideas. Energy fighting. Vertical separation. Refusal to commit. Making the enemy spend effort while you conserved it. By the time later wars came, those principles were considered common sense. Few remembered where they had come from. Somewhere in a training archive, there is a faded report written in neat handwriting. It describes an engagement where one aircraft survived by refusing to behave as expected. No heroics. No glory. Just a pilot who ignored the rules of the game and lived long enough to let the war end without him. And that, more than any victory tally, was his real achievement.